The truth is that mutants are very real, and they are among us. We must know who they are, and above all, we must know what they can do.
Mary, I said at the end of the last episode that little 6-year-old Matt would be wetting himself with excitement for this one, and I'm positively drenched. Sodden, actually.
Wow. Well, we knew you were very excited about this.
Yeah.
As long as I've known you, X-Men have been right up there among your favourites.
Yeah, but it's one of the earliest kind of obsessions with a film I think I've ever had. Especially the second one. Gotta say, I remember the second one vividly because I would have been too young to go and see the first one in the cinema. But yeah, how far back do you go with X-Men? When did you first see them?
Do you know what? I actually cannot remember. I was thinking about this and I can't think of a time I hadn't seen them. So it must have been fairly early on, like around when they were coming out.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm very hit and miss with them now because as a series,
it doesn't work really, does it?
It's very up and down, I think.
Yeah.
As a series, it's got a lot of highs and lows. Yeah, like one film's amazing and the next one's a dud and then the next one's amazing, and so you're really up and down with them. So I have a very hit and miss relationship with X-Men. I haven't watched them for a long time, so this was interesting.
Mm-hmm. They are sort of objectively a little bit naff. But there's ways of looking past it, I think, because there's a lot more to it. There's more sort of under the surface and even at the surface. There's so many like diverse characters and the storylines are all quite compelling, actually. I think they're all really good. Mm-hmm. You can not like the films and still like X-Men, I think. We're not comic book readers, but we both probably watched the 90s cartoon.
Yeah, I did. That was my introduction to X-Men and I really enjoyed that. A lot of memories.
I must say, though, just to demonstrate the extent to which I might have been a little bit obsessed. I had like toys. I had a big sort of 12-inch posable Wolverine and a Nightcrawler. I had the X-Jet. Our computer had the desktop wallpapers, like these interactive things that were probably really dodgy downloads.
Wow.
I had posters, the PS2 games. I even remember we went to Burger King before seeing X-Men 2, and the toy in there was X-Men. I had the Nightcrawler from that. I used to pause and draw the scenes from the TV, and we used to play X-Men in the playground. That was like our game at school.
Wow.
That and Harry Potter.
That is an obsession. Yeah. I think that's the definition of the term.
It's about to get worse. The last thing, I started sort of just jotting down every time I recalled something. I was like, oh yeah, I used to have that. I actually once collected like all the empty toilet roll tubes.
Wow.
And with a felt tip, I sort of drew like the characters, the iconic costumes on there. And I remember having them. You would open like a cupboard and they'd just be lined up, every single one.
All of your toilet rolls.
But it's such a good, yeah. It's just, there's something about them, like the look of them was always just so aesthetically very pleasing, and I think a lot of superhero films to come kind of jumped on that a little bit.
Yeah, I find it very odd, your relationship with X-Men, because you're not a Marvel fan. Really?
No, well, I think the X-Men films are still better than the than the MCU films. Not necessarily like
there'll be people gasping.
Quality of films, but I think the characters are better in X-Men. I think the actors were of a higher stature.
We're going to start off with a big quiz, aren't we?
Yes.
24 questions, 4 each from each of the 3 films.
Yeah. Quiz music, go. I'll let you go first.
Nice, easy one to start.
Okay.
What did Stan Lee make a cameo appearance as in the first X-Men movie?
Oh, I remember him in the... Oh, no, I do know. But I don't remember seeing him when I watched it this time. Is he on the beach?
He is on the beach.
Is he like barbecuing or something?
Oh, I'll give you half a point for that. He is a hot dog vendor.
Half a point?
Yep.
Hot dogs can be barbecued, come on. Right, half a point. I'm going to be strict with you today. Right. According to Xavier, approximately how often does evolution leap forwards?
Oh, God.
I mean, it's the first line in the film. I mean,
Oh, I know, but I've watched the other two since. Is it once a millennia? Is it something to do with a millennia?
I will play you your own game and give you half a point. He says every few hundred millennia.
Oh,
so
okay. Well, I'm just pleased I got millennia. Millennia was in the sentence. So that's fine.
Half a point.
This one, I had absolutely no clue. So if you get this, I'll be dead impressed. What is the name of Magneto's island?
Oh, is that ever mentioned? Is that a thing? Hang on a minute. Okay, so it's in some cliffs, and it's rocky. His island.
His island.
Oh, you're not thinking of there's an island called Genosha at some point in the.
Oh my
film.
God, I am impressed.
Well, Genosha's actually it's where all the mutants go as kind of like a safe place. But if it gives me a point, I don't mind. Yeah.
Okay, your turn. Go on.
Okay, in which U.S. state did Rogue live in before she ran away?
Oh, I don't know if it's the state. She's from Mississippi.
Correct.
I don't know if is that the state. Yeah.
That is right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
She's from Meridian, Mississippi.
Oh, I'll take that.
I'm just glad about the Genosha question.
I know. I'm very impressed. What does Logan mockingly refer to Charles Xavier as when he meets him?
Wheels.
That's correct.
I love that line. Okay, selection this one. Can you name 4 features of Wolverine's power?
Okay, so there's regeneration.
Accelerated regenerative healing, yes.
Yeah. There is obviously the claws that come out of the adamantium claws.
Yeah.
Would you say aging? That he doesn't age?
Yep, decelerated aging.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, now I'm stumped.
There's one that's kind of like more general, and there's one that's like the film specifically kind of draws your attention to.
Oh my God.
At this stage, I'm calling it half a point. If you get another one, I'll give it the full.
No, I can't. No, I'm stuck. Go on.
Well, a general one is just enhanced strength and stamina.
Okay. Right.
And the other one is animalistic senses, so he can smell things and hear things.
Oh, right.
An animal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Half a point for you.
Okay. I wouldn't have got that. Which of these mutants doesn't make a cameo in the first movie? Kitty Pryde, Jubilee, Colossus, or Psylocke?
Let me think. I remember Psylocke turning up in the third one.
Okay.
So I don't know what that means. Definitely Shadowcat. Pretty sure we see Jubilee. One of like 18 versions that we see of each of them. Why can't I remember if we see Colossus or not? We don't see Psylocke.
Okay. You gonna go with that one?
Yeah, go on then.
Yeah, no, you're correct. Psylocke is not in the first movie.
Again, quite a selection one. Mystique adopts the form of 5 non-mutants
That's
in the
just
film.
not fair.
Can you name 3 of them?
Um,
If they don't have a character name, just say who they were.
I can't think. She's turned into so many people in so many films. Right. Well, one of them's definitely Senator Kelly.
Yes.
I can't even remember the first film now. I only just watched the third one last night. I can't even remember the first film.
If you think more towards the end of the film, there's quite a handful.
No, you're gonna have to give me no points for that one.
Okay. Well, she plays Senator Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
His assistant Henry Gyrich in the helicopter.
Oh yeah, who ends up being killed. Yeah.
She's a boat driver, ferry driver, a security guard at the end when she gets picked up, and she also turns into the Statue of Liberty statue.
Never would have got that.
Sorry.
I don't have a very good memory anyway. When you give me selections like that, God, it's too difficult. Right, okay, so this for the second movie.
Yes.
What is the name of Stryker's henchman? I should say female henchman.
Her real name is Yuriko Oyama, and her name is Lady Deathstrike.
Well done. Very impressed.
He only says it like once, I think, in the film, and they never refer to her as Lady Deathstrike. But...
They never do, but I'm impressed, you know.
Okay, what is written on the knife used by Nightcrawler during the attack on the president?
Try and get the order. It's Mutant Freedom Now. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. Correct.
Lovely. Okay. What does Logan drink in the school while he's talking to Bobby?
Right, this is the question I was going to ask you.
Oh!
It's a Dr. Pepper.
It is a Dr. Pepper.
I did think, I wonder if she'll pick up on that as a question as well. that was the question I considered the hardest, and you've used it on me, so that's all right then. What book does Magneto read in his plastic prison?
Oh, shoot.
You see the book, and then later on in the film, Xavier starts teaching his pupils about it.
I'm sure I know who the author is.
J.K. Rowling.
No, it was not J.K. Rowling. It's T.H. White. That I know it was T.H. White because I remember him saying it at the end. Have you read a book by T.H. White called?
Mm-hmm.
There's something about a king. Once and Future King. Is that right?
Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah, the Once and Future King. It's the one that King Arthur stories.
I might have to read that. I like King Arthur.
Yeah, it looks alright, yeah.
Okay. How many children were taken as hostages by Stryker after the raid on the mansion?
6.
Well done. How the hell did you know that?
Because I wrote it as a question for you. But I didn't put it in my questions, so technically I didn't write it as a question for you. How did William Stryker's wife die?
She put a drill into her temple.
Yep, she took a power drill to her left temple.
Okay, my last question then for this one. What is the name of Bobby's younger brother?
Oh, hang on a minute. Hang on, I know
I
it.
thought it was really unoriginal to call your two kids these names. I wasn't really very impressed. I thought, well, if you've got Bobby, you wouldn't really...
It's Ronnie.
It is, yeah.
I believe.
It's terrible.
I was thinking Eric.
It's like not original at all.
It would be Robert and Ronald, wouldn't it?
Oh, I hope not.
Okay, my last one to you then. What does Logan tell Bobby Drake's family that he is a professor of
Art
at the school? Oh, such a good script. Okay, last film.
Yes, last film. Who are the doctors going to test the cure on?
The first patient is Warren Worthington's son, so his name's Warren Worthington.
It is. Do you know what his thingy name is?
Angel.
Yes, well done.
Yeah, and then he flies away. What position does Hank McCoy occupy in the president's cabinet?
Is it something like an advisor to mutant relations or something like that?
I'll give you
something like that.
I'll give you. I mean, I suppose that's kind of obvious in a way, but I'll give you half a point. Yeah, he's the Secretary of Mutant Affairs.
Oh, right, okay.
But that's kind of the same thing, so half a point.
Okay, right. How many banks did Multiple Man steal from?
7.
That's correct.
I know, because when they said it, I also counted how many versions of him came out of the cell, and I think they did 7 then. But then he could have robbed so many more. What 3 words are written on Charles Xavier's gravestone? Spoiler.
Oh, God.
Like he's described in 3 ways.
That's just too hard.
I mean, at least 2 of them are very basic descriptions of his job, really. I mean...
Yeah. Hang on. I can see it in my head. It's the little picture with this round bald head on it. Leader is one of them. I think. One of them. Teacher.
Prostitute.
Father. Not prostitute. No, I don't think that one was right.
Yeah, it's father, teacher, leader.
Oh, I did them in the other order, but I mean that's fine. That's fine.
That's correct.
Hey. Okay. What is the name of the cure mutant?
Again, he does have a mutant name as well. In the film, he's only referred to as Jimmy, I think.
I'll give you that, yeah.
But his mutant name is Leech.
That's correct. Not a very nice mutant name. I feel like somebody else might have picked that for him. I don't think you'd pick Leech as your own name.
He kind of sucks the power out of people, doesn't he, I suppose?
Yeah, not a very nice name, really.
Love this question. Which chess piece does Magneto move with his powers at the end of the film?
Son of a... Is it the... I'm terrible with these. Is it the castle? Is it a castle? Is that what you call it? I don't do chess.
Like the rook or the castle? Yeah.
Is that what it is?
It's not.
Oh,
no.
Damn it. Which one does he move then?
I think a lot of people would say king as well. It's not. He moves the queen.
Does he? Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Oh, damn it. Okay. Sort of similar on the grave theme. What order are the graves in at the school? You see them at the end. It shows you the graves.
Yeah. You see Jean Grey, Scott Summers, Charles Xavier.
That's correct. Well done. I told you were going to find all these easy and I was going to look stupid.
The thing is, like, I'm also looking for quiz questions. Right, I don't know how to word this because I'm not a costume designer, but in X-Men 3, and they all dress up ready to go out on the jet and go to Alcatraz Island. Like Wolverine has orange lining on his costume, Storm has white, Iceman has like a icy colour, but what colour does Kitty Pryde have on hers?
Is it red?
I don't think I can accept it. It's like a proper fuchsia pink colour.
Oh, is it? Oh, right, okay.
Really like bright pink.
I don't remember that at all.
Sorry. Okay, ready to...
Okay.
I'll tell you how you did. You got 7.5 out of 12.
Did I? I'll take that. I'm actually fairly pleased with that.
Right. Yeah?
You got 11.5 out of 12. Right. I told you you'd come out on top of this one.
Yeah, what did I lose for half a point on? I can't remember now.
The first one, the hot dog vendor. You said he was barbecuing. And I'm very pleased I gave you half a point now.
He was dishing out sausages. They were probably getting heated up in there. There could be a barbecue mechanism, like, inside. But I'll take that. Okay. Wow, okay. How did you do at home? Let us know. We've had a bit of fun, and we'll come back to having a bit of fun at the end when we talk about our top 5 characters. But let's talk about what the films did for the superhero genre and why was the approach that was taken so sort of revolutionary. Why was it considered that way? It's funny because we've only just done some comic book adaptations really with Batman, and obviously they came a bit later after these. But I think it's got to be said that what X-Men did must have been a massive influence and really set the stage and the precursor for what a lot of films were going to do.
Yeah. Definitely. Obviously, Marvel wasn't making movies for another 8 years after this. So the whole trilogy of X-Men was, been and gone by the time that Marvel even started. But when you look at Marvel now, I picture them very colourful, very bright, very light. Yes, there's dark themes in some of them and, there's the bad guys, but they're quite light films, I think.
Yeah.
I don't see X-Men as light films.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, no, they are quite dark.
They're very dark, and they've got really serious undertones and messages and metaphors that you don't get in the other films, really. You just don't see that in other comic book movies, and that's huge.
It comes down really to the fact that for the first time they took the idea of superheroes and they really just treated them as citizens of the real world. Yeah. There was nothing apart from their powers which were given like a rationale, like a scientific reason. There was nothing else about them.
It's a mutation. They are human. They live amongst humans. They're perfectly normal, apart from the fact that all of them have these abilities.
Yeah, and they kind of make reference to the fact that mutation has been happening forever. We've mutated. It's that leap forwards in evolution that just happens to have happened, and it's caused like a rift because all of a sudden these people are different. Yeah. And history hasn't coped very well with people who are different.
Yeah, they're very fantastical elements, but they're very grounded.
Yeah.
In a reality that we can very easily accept.
The other thing as well, especially with this trilogy, it was set in the present day. It's not really set. The prequels sort of went backwards, but They did manage to mix in with real historical events, or at least comment on current affairs that were happening at the time. In fact, the very first film, as an introduction to what the X-Men films could be, it's a scene at Auschwitz. I mean, it set the tone and the intent for what they were going to do.
It's an incredible opening. It really is,
so
because it really does look like real life.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing fantastical or light or nothing like that at all. It doesn't say, "Oh, that's a superpower." You don't think of it like these heroes with superpowers. It's so grounded.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of where not just these films, but I think all science fiction and fantasy films reflect reality somehow. There's always a metaphor, because it's always inevitably got to be based on something that we already know. It's written by us, so it's got to be this whole idea then of, well, what is it saying, and what is the big metaphor here? Because mutant, actually, you could replace that word in the film with several other different classifications of people.
Well, that's what the opening does, doesn't it? The opening right there, it's showing you this is another word for it. Mutants could be Jews. It's that message is right there, plain and clear, smack bang at the beginning. It's a very powerful tool. It was very well thought out, I think, starting that way.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's always sort of like questions of superiority between races. I think that's a big topic.
Power and responsibility is very much mentioned as well.
Yeah, because anybody who's other is always seen as a threat, aren't they? In some ridiculous way, they're always seen as a threat to, I don't know, humanity's survival or traditional values, and it's all something that needs to be controlled or needs to be exterminated.
In that sense, I don't think they've dated at all.
No. One of the things I really like is that they use mutant, but it's an umbrella term, really. It could apply to absolutely any member of a minority group or a marginalised group that may experience some kind of oppression or be treated differently because of who they are or what they look like. It's so applicable.
It's very much about prejudice.
Yeah. Prejudice, discrimination,
any kind of it.
So I think that's super clever, and like you say, you could then apply it in theory to any context, in any moment in history, to any group, and it will always work. At the core of it, that's the thing I love about it, because literally you could do so much with it. So we've touched on just a few of them already, with religion being one of them, and we sort of scratched the surface with race as well. Well, maybe we should start with race, I guess. It's not the easiest to apply the metaphor to, but at a basic level, there are a lot of mutants in the films that have a very obvious physical difference, and skin colour is something that plays into it a lot. There's not, I mean, that's kind of the point in itself, but there's a couple of things that I've looked into and I kind of thought again about. There's people like, Nightcrawler, he's blue-skinned, got fangs and a tail and three fingers and three toes. The only conceivable way he could ever fit in was as a circus act. Even though he seems to have been this much loved circus act. The fact that the only way you could fit in was to be kind of a freak show, or you're like a commodity in a way.
Where they knew to expect something different. They went there looking for it.
For all they know, it might have been a man in a costume. Or something like that. And on a similar route, people like William Stryker in the second film, he's using his chemical persuasion drug things to get mutants to do things for him. And he kind of uses them, like he objectifies them, weaponizes them. And I thought, why would he do it if he hated them so much? And Xavier says it himself, like, for someone who hates mutants, why, you've got such strange company. And it got me thinking about things like America's slave trade past and things like that. People were different and you owned them, and you used them and they worked for you. It just got me thinking along the lines of race. I thought that was quite interesting. But the big one, I mean, we could probably apply it broader now to sexuality in general, but more directly I think homosexuality is the one that the films were sort of targeting, and the director was gay, and Ian McKellen was gay. He was brought on, I think, largely in part that he was a big advocate for gay rights.
That will have been a big deal for him, I think. I think he'll have seen a lot of those metaphors and messages in there. I think that will have had a huge impact on him taking the part in the first place.
it sounds like Bryan Singer approached him and said, "You do know it's about gay people." And he was like, "Oh yes." So I just thought it'd be good because there's so many different ways that you can look at this. Just to like run down a few of the examples. And the first big one, again, it's one of the first lines in the film. There's a big similarity to the period in your life where a mutation would develop is also the same time that you go through puberty, or i.e. a time when you would discover that you're different, and or your orientation or your identity and things like that. Can you think of like any examples where that is actually physically shown?
Obviously, the first scene with Rogue.
Yeah.
That is a budding relationship, isn't it? You hit puberty, you start to think differently about the opposite sex, and it's then that she discovers that she has those powers. And maybe the fact that obviously when you do go through puberty, your hormones are all over the shop.
They do say that, don't they? Heightened emotional states.
And that it might be that in which triggered her powers. She had these feelings for this boy, this boyfriend, and that might be the trigger. So
it's implied it's her first kiss. So in a way, it's like it's an awakening in more than one sense of the word, really. That the idea of sexual and the idea of mutation is kind of all in one. So you're right. That's the big example, and they give us that second scene in the film. The other one is in the third one where the young angel is cutting off his wings. That to me it looks just like a teenage boy getting caught in the act doing something that he shouldn't, kind of thing. Some examples like that. And I guess maybe a bit later, and some of the older characters having to come out as well.
Yeah, my example was going to be Bobby in the second movie. They don't know, and he's like, I haven't told my parents yet. And sitting down with them, it's like, well, we'll still love you. Have you ever decided not to be? I mean, do you know what I mean? It very much feels like a conversation that could happen.
Yeah, it's like verbatim dialogue, isn't it? That could have been just lifted from any other coming out scene in a film. There's something I need to tell you. I'm one of those people, essentially, is what's happening. I guess that what links into that is the idea that mutants are having to also hide a part of who they are, which, although it's commonly done by superheroes anyway, because they always have alter egos, but in this case, this correlates with an aspect of homosexual experience that you would have to be closeted or have to try and pass, pass as being normal in society. And it's a massive question in all the films, but especially the third one, when this cure comes about and you have that choice, it's like, is it better for me to blend in as normal, or should I pretend I'm something I'm not, or should I?
The thing I really liked it in that was Storm's reaction to Rogue when she comes in, she says, is it true? Can they cure us? And she's like, we don't need curing. There's nothing wrong with us. We don't have a problem. But she knows who she is, and she'll stick true to it. Do you know what I mean? And I like that.
It's about acceptance, isn't it? It's like, why, we didn't choose to be this way. Beast kind of joins in then as well, doesn't he? Because when they're all debating, because it is a very sort of debatey film. Like, the film even asks the question to you. It's like, well, what would you do? And he says, well, is it cowardice to save oneself from persecution? Not all of us can blend in so easily, and I guess that comes back to that idea of hiding again, because he's another blue-skinned mutant.
Yeah. It's not something he can hide. And you see that when he's in the room with Jimmy and he sees his hand, there's this astonishing look of desire.
Yes, I could be normal again. Is there a line in the film? I don't know whether I've just made this up. It might be from a different film series, but it applies to this in a way. It's like there'll come a time where you have to make a choice. It's Harry Potter, between what is easy and what is right. It's Dumbledore that says that, but whatever. That's kind of the question that's being asked of this. But then you've got some people like Mystique, like her natural form, like she couldn't get away with it at all, but she has the ability to be in disguise, whereas she talks to someone like Nightcrawler, who basically says to her, well, why not stay in disguise all the time? You could look like someone else and get away with it. And her response is, because we shouldn't have to.
Yeah.
It's a very good point. And again, it's that question, do you try and hide, or do you deliberately try and go against the establishment? The other massive one, and you mentioned it already about having to cure people, is that idea that mutants are a disease that needs to be cured, and you can't ignore there's blatant references to the AIDS epidemic. The ways that homosexual people were treated and seen and viewed because of that going on at the time. Every plot of each film is in some way related to that.
A part in the first film where Magneto says, obviously it's all set in America, and he says this was supposed to be the land of tolerance. And he's at Ellis Island, where immigrants, it's famous for its bringing through immigrants into the country. You very much get the feeling of a mutant as an immigrant.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually.
That theme of tolerance, I mean, it's all the way through. Those who are tolerable and those who aren't, and the effects that has.
I'd actually never thought about immigration as being another way of reading it, especially in Magneto's terms. I did a bit of looking into... in the first film, Senator Kelly's trying to pass this law, this Mutant Registration Act, so that you would have to declare your identity and your powers and things like that. There was a senator in the 1980s who made a statement once advocating that there had to be mandatory HIV testing if you were gay, and if you were an AIDS patient, you had to be quarantined and things like that. So I think there's definite references there to that kind of, not control, but it's kind of like cutting off from the rest of society. We need to know who they are and what they can do. And
it was a very powerful scene, that scene in the court, and you've got Jean Grey trying to show the other side of it. Because, I mean, that whole thing, that was Hitler all over,
I suppose so,
that was how it started. Do you know what I mean? You've got to register yourself. You've got to wear stars. You've got to, you know what I mean? That's how it all started. So there's something about watching that and you think, oh my God. And Magneto does say, doesn't he, a few times, this has already happened. I know exactly where it's going to go next.
Because he's been there himself.
And
then there's all the different ways that, again, baddies in the films like William Stryker and Warren Worthington, they try and cure it as if it's a disease.
As if you've got a problem.
Exactly.
That you need getting rid of.
When William Stryker sent his son to Xavier's school in the past, thinking that it was going to be some kind of pray away the powers kind of, like a conversion camp for conversion therapy, I guess. And then Xavier couldn't help him. He said mutation's not a disease. And then the really obvious one is, I mean, the whole plot of the third one is just the fact that, you can cure, what is alluded to as being the gay gene, not so subtly, because otherwise you're an evolutionary threat, which is kind of ridiculous.
I just can't imagine a world where you had mutants. I would be jealous, frankly. I'm like, you can do that? Oh my God, I want to do that. They've got these heightened abilities. I don't see it as a problem. I would see it as a gift. You can do this. You can do this thing that people can't do, and it can help or hinder or whatever. But it's a gift. So I find that really hard to understand the way but that's reality, isn't it? I find that when you see all these terrible things happening in real life, persecution and things, it's so hard to understand how it can happen, because my brain does not work that way.
I think in a way that's why they foregrounded Rogue in this one. And I think she's kind of a slight exception, because although everyone else can kind of use their powers, at least use them for good, or, do something useful with them. She's kind of the best metaphor if we're going to look at it as a disease, because literally she kills people if she touches them. So that's everything I kind of had. There was just one extra point that I did pick up that I'd never picked up before, and this is the idea of schools and schooling, because Senator Kelly in the first film talks about, well, we don't want mutants teaching in our schools. And again, another reference. So there's a lady, she was some bitch, called Anita Bryant in the past, who had this Save Our Children campaign, which was inspired by a Baptist minister who said he would burn down his church before he let a homosexual teach there. And that was a real thing. And there's actual posters and placards in X-Men of Save Our Children in all the protest scenes outside Congress and things like that. So I think that's really interesting. Then he compares mutant children to being as bad as having guns in schools.
That really stood out. It really, really stood out, because it's such an extremist view
Yeah.
But it would be so catching, I think.
It's scaremongering, isn't it? All of these things were just scaremongering politicians.
But this is humanity, I think. Our problem is we don't accept anything we don't understand.
Yeah, that's directly said, isn't it? It's mankind has always feared it.
And that's one of our biggest flaws, I think. We're not a very, and I'm talking as an average, not everybody, but as a race, as a species, we're not very open-minded.
No, we don't like change.
Yeah, and that is where the fear and the kind of persecution of things comes from, because we can't accept change. We find it very difficult to understand and to accept differences.
Yeah, that's true.
Obviously, there are always those who battle against that and fight against that for the greater good, used in the correct sense, not the wrong sense.
The greater good.
It's got some very powerful messages in there.
When Mystique starts talking about her experience at school as a child and things like that, and then you think there's a whole nother level, and you think, oh God, even the kids.
Yeah.
It's not just government. It's like the average people. You
kids
add into it, bullying and harassment and just general dealing with your identity and being different to everyone else as a child. And then this idea that you would have to go away to this secret, safe place school that's special for special people like you, because that's the only way that you can, get away from hostility and things like that, which is what Xavier School is.
I think Bobby's parents are pretty stupid, because how on earth could they send him away there and just think it's a prep school?
Well, they didn't care really, did they? Well, they preferred the other son anyway, so he was probably better off without them. But anyway, of all the more sort of in-depth stuff, I think that's it. And I think I don't know if people watch the films and think, oh, this is about something else really. It's quite cleverly disguised. You can choose to take it, or you can just watch it for what it is. But I would like to think that maybe, I don't know if anybody's listening and maybe you hadn't looked at it in that way before, it's definitely written like that. And the comics were as well.
I don't think, if they haven't looked at it, I think people should definitely go back and watch it, because it will be amazing to you.
It's
how many times you'll see these different messages.
Apparently, Professor X and Magneto were written to be basically Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. They both shared the same ultimate aim of view, but they just had different approaches. One was peaceful and one was a bit more violent, I suppose.
Yeah, that works. You can see that, I think.
It's a product of the 60s. The comics are completely embedded in that time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So it's fantastic. Right, okay, so before we do our top 5 characters, this is where we can just let loose now. It's subjective now. What did you think? Let's do each film in turn. X-Men from 2000.
I was very disappointed with this one. More disappointed than I expected. I don't know why, because I always remembered liking it. But I haven't seen it in such a long time, and it didn't work as well as I remember it.
I think it's actually a very simple story, and it made me think, God, what a throwback to a simpler time. Like, there's no convoluted storylines and timelines and anything like that. It's just good, bad. Here's the situation. They're going to stop it.
It's definitely dated, I think, the first one. I'm not talking just about the effects. I think the overall kind of look of the film, the technology you see in it, I think it's definitely dated, the film.
Yeah, I suppose so.
My main thoughts about this one, and don't get me wrong, I like the film. I do like the film. I think I was holding it up to the standards of the second one. Which is vastly superior. So this one, it kind of feels a bit hollow. The characters didn't feel fleshed out at all. I think that stops you feeling as much for the characters as you could have done. I mean, the messages and everything that's there are brilliant. I think there's certain parts of it that are fantastic. There's lots of set pieces in the X-Men movies. They're all set up as like little mini set pieces. But I just feel like there was not enough of what there should have been. I mean, a lot of the abilities, you don't really get an idea of what mutants can do, because it's so grounded. It's a superhero movie, but you don't really see much in it, and you don't get to that until the fight at the end.
I think in a way, probably that was the way they wanted to do it. I don't think it was meant to be a great big, showy, flashy. This is it, because the focus essentially was, no, they are ordinary. they have powers and they'll use them, in extreme circumstances like the end of the film. But I don't think, they weren't going around and just fighting crime. Effectively, they were just trying to live. They were only fighting crime because Magneto was trying to stop them. I think that's kind of it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But there's lots of things that happened in this one that going forwards were a bit more standardized. Like that, you get the opening monologue. That kind of became a bit of a trend for a short while. This whole mutation.
Yeah.
Things like the opening titles, they always kind of look or allude to what's going to happen in the film. So this one was kind of about mutation itself, and it goes down a spinal column, and I think that's quite good because they kept that up until today. They still do things like that. I like that. I thought the music was extremely interesting, and I remember it being very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
There's no real main theme in the film. You kind of get like lots of different music bits. Like you get Mystique's music bit, which is like this.
Parts of it, like the actual action parts of it, sounded a little bit like the TV show music.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said this. Yeah,
it was very much in there.
There's definite references to it because the '90s cartoon was like.
That is X-Men for me. That is.
But in
X-Men.
the film, they just modified it slightly. Instead of going it goes and it's the same little references. But the music itself, it's made up of little bits of sound effects, like little digital bleeps and zips and things like that. And then there's like this techno drum that will go. Yeah, it sounded like the start of an episode of Casualty or something. And I thought, well, it does feel like it's quite a dark, dramatic thing. It wasn't at the stage of having big brass fanfares and things like that. It wasn't quite there yet.
Yeah, it does work really well in this one.
What about cast?
I think for the most part, I think the films are really well cast. The third one, less so. I think the third one, they just kind of went out there and were like picked out faces people would know.
Randomness.
But I think the first ones are very well cast. It's the way that they're utilised that's the issue.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I have no problem with the casting. It's how much they're used or underused that is my issue with them.
Well, with me, I kind of have always, in a way, resented the characters of Rogue and Wolverine because they kind of became the focus. And although I completely understand it because of the approach they were doing, they're the best embodiments of outcasts and runaways, but not at the expense of every other interesting character.
Yeah.
And I get it, there's only so much time in a film to cover, and the stories were still covered great, but you've got your characters like Storm and Cyclops who, they just barely got anything to do. And Cyclops, meant to have been the leader.
You said, didn't you, yesterday, the actual amount of time that Cyclops is on the screen, and it is absolutely, it's terrible.
8.5 minutes of screen time in the first one, and then that goes down to 7.5 in the second one, and then the third film he has 3.5 minutes.
Oh, it's just criminal. It's criminal.
Halle Berry's does increase, but she did win an Oscar straight after the first film came out, so I do think they probably went, we should probably put Oscar winner Halle Berry in the film. I think it goes without saying that Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart were genius casting choices.
Yeah, they were going to get good screen time.
I can't see anyone else playing. I know obviously we've seen younger versions, but I can't imagine anyone else playing those two characters as well. Yeah.
The second one, I feel it made up for so many issues that I had with the first one. Just as a whole, the film is completely better. It's a better script than the first one. I mean, within the first 20 minutes, you can see this is a much better film in all aspects. They also improved like elements from the first one, like Cerebro, for example, when you're actually seeing like that. There's a lot of elements that they've improved on, not just added in.
Kept as it,
Yeah. They show you right from the beginning much more of the abilities the characters have, which is what you want from the characters. You want to know what they can do and see that. That's what you want from the films. And most importantly, you also get closer to the characters. You're seeing more of them. You're getting to know them more. They're much more fleshed out. And that was my biggest problem with the first film.
I think in the first one, the stakes are high for the people who are attending the United Nations summit, but not really for anybody else. There's nothing directly threatening mutants as such.
Yeah, whereas this one, the stakes are completely upped. It's like extinction, basically.
Yeah, and you've got, their mansions being raided at the beginning, the president's getting attacked at the beginning in one of the best scenes.
That is one of the greatest opening scenes of a movie.
Trust me, after my Burger King in 2003.
And again, like I said before, there's lots of mini set pieces in this where all the elements come together. For example, the Mystique breaking into the office, the church where they find Nightcrawler. There's and they're utilising all the music and the script, and just it's really perfectly plotted. So each of those set pieces work really, really well.
I like that the villains are always human. Now, there's no super villains that come out. I mean, Magneto is an exception.
Well, see, this is something I want to discuss. Magneto, I think, is one of the most interesting characters.
Yeah.
They make you pity Magneto because he was used in this awful way against his will. And it blurs the lines between him being good and evil. What Magneto does, he always goes about things in the violent way and too far. But Magneto is not wrong.
Okay, yeah.
His reasoning is not wrong. He's just going about things the wrong way. And that it makes him a very interesting character because you can't hate him completely. Yeah. Because he's not wrong.
Okay, I mean, all the way through, you do kind of feel like that, and then he just takes it that step too far, doesn't he?
Yeah,
so after
and you're like,
Stryker's he's replicated Cerebro, and they're targeting all the mutants. He sort of says he has an opportunity to just stop it, and just to, have that level of peace, which is what Xavier would have done. He can't. He has to say, you know what, kill the humans while you're at it.
But he was in a prison camp as a child, so you kind of can understand his reasoning behind that. He knows what humanity can do.
For him, it's last resort. And then we said it earlier, he's seen history repeat itself over and over and over again, and he truly believes that for as long as mutants are around, humans will never get on with them, so why not just get rid of humans?
Yeah.
So part of me, I'm like, all right then. I've got to say, Wolverine, back again, causing trouble. Why is he so determined to break up couples? I mean, what's he doing? What's the point?
The whole Jean Grey thing, I just don't like. I
find someone else.
Yeah, I don't like that, I have to admit. No.
But I mostly hate it because it shat all over Cyclops. Like, they literally just pushed him to the side.
It really did. But I do like the storyline in this one for Wolverine.
Yeah.
Like, the amnesia and the figuring out who he is. And that, and Stryker's a brilliant character. He really is a brilliant... And Brian Cox is just... I mean, he's fabulous, isn't he?
Good,
so he always is.
He's very underrated, I think.
Yeah, he was really good. And there are parts of this, like, that obviously what he as a character is doing, like the break-in at the school, it's brutal. Because when you actually think about it, it's traumatizing, knowing that they're actually attacking children.
Yeah, and the fact that he's forced Nightcrawler to do the presidential assassination attempt.
Yeah.
So that he could get permission to go and do it. So that he could steal Cerebro, that he could capture kids and test on them and kill mutants.
It's brutal. It's really dark.
Plan, yeah. And it's all rooted in the fact that he just can't stand that his son was a mutant.
Was one of them, yeah. He can't accept it.
And he projects that loathing onto every other mutant.
I think there's tons of scenes, but one that I really liked that stood out was the adamantium fight.
Oh, so good. It's
breathtaking to watch because it's a fair fight.
Yeah, the stakes are equal, aren't they? They can't die.
Yeah, you know all about Wolverine, you know his abilities. Yeah. And this woman has exactly the same. And more claws.
Yeah, and they're longer.
Yeah, so you're like, how on earth is this going to end?
I don't know her from anything else. Her name's Kelly Hu. But her and Alan Cumming, I think, were brilliant additions. They're just perfect secondary characters that they brought in. I still think number 2 is one of the best superhero films ever made.
I agree. It's just a really
so good,
entertaining film.
Yeah.
It's never boring.
It's set piece to set piece to set piece. I mean, there's loads we haven't even said. There's a fight in the jet at one point. There's the cars and the fire, and Magneto escapes his plastic prison, and then the whole last hour at Alkali Lake. Let's not even... not even go there.
Really, really well put together.
So good.
So, moving on to the last one then.
Yeah.
the first thing I took from this was that it's not as bad as its reputation.
No, it definitely isn't.
It's got a lot of the same themes, the power and responsibility with power, choices, whether willing or forced. Is there a need for a cure? Is it necessary?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's quite as bad as its reputation. And you used the word, I think probably the best word to describe the third one, clunky.
It's just a little bit less glued together, and I think it did come with the change of director, although I think Bryan Singer left to go and do Superman Returns, which I just
probably shouldn't have bothered.
Stuck it out. Just do the last one. So I think the change of director to Brett Ratner instead destabilized it a little bit. I think a lot of the comic book fans, the actual original source material fans, would probably have the most problem with this because they took the Dark Phoenix storyline. It was very sort of rushed.
Yeah. In
fact, I've written here, this film should really have been called X-Men 3, Jean! You know.
I think the first 2/3 are fine. They're, they've still got those themes of like fighting hate and intolerance. That's
absolutely.
So the first 2/3, like bringing about the cure and that question of like different characters and how they feel about it, Rogue and stuff. I think that's all fine. The first 2/3 are very well done. Apart from the fact that the characters are so underserved. Rogue just disappears. She's out of the bloody movie. She's just gone. She doesn't even come back at the end for the fight, and obviously she's lost her power. So you know.
Well, no one seemed to even notice. I mean, my favourite line in the film, because it was just so ridiculous, was that Iceman goes and knocks on her door because no one's bothered to tell him that she's bloody left the night before.
No,
he knocks on the door and he's like, "Oh no, she is gone." And he comes out and he looks at Colossus and says, "Peter, have you seen Rogue?" And he goes, "Yeah, she took off."
That's it.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm her boyfriend, so it's nice of you to have told me, and thank you very much.
I have a problem with the scene where Mystique is cured. She saves him, basically. But the way he just kind of shrugs her off, so callous. And I don't know if
a bit more, couldn't they?
Yeah, it's that. I had a real problem with that.
Yeah. When you think that actually how long those two have meant to have known each other and worked together and maybe even loved each other.
Yeah, that doesn't work for me.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A few things that I picked out. I mean, Juggernaut himself is a very unusual character. He's fun, but he's a very odd addition. Vinnie Jones, he kind of probably did the best he could with what he was given.
But again, it's like we say, they just picked these faces that people would know to put in parts.
Yeah. But there's things like he would charge through a group of people, and the sound effect they chose to use was bowling pins being knocked down.
Do you know, I never actually took that on board, but I will listen out for that one.
It just made you think, don't do that. That turns it back into a cartoon.
Yeah.
That diminishes what's just been built up over the last two films.
There was a bit I did like when Logan puts on the suit. He willingly puts on the suit at the end and he declares himself part of the X-Men. And that's a big moment because he's always been on the fringes, like more of an outsider, an unwilling participator to know what's going on. So that bit I thought was good. I think the problem starts with the moving of the bridge, San Francisco Bridge. That itself is fine.
Apart from the fact that it's instantly nighttime after they do it. Have you noticed?
That was what I was just about to say. The bridge bit, great. It's just night all of a sudden. Why is it night? It was daytime. You've literally just gone from one to the next. There's no merge to it. I hate that in movies. It really annoys me.
Yeah.
So that was a problem. I had problems with that. But I think the worst parts start then.
Right, yeah. It just turns into complete popcorn fest.
I think that's why I say the first 2/3 are fine. I don't really have many issues apart from the underserving of the characters.
Yeah. On the topic of underserved characters, when I first watched this, I could not believe the fact that they killed Cyclops and Professor X.
Terrible. I mean, not just the fact that they did it in the first place. That in itself is inexcusable. But the fact that they did it so early. I mean, Cyclops is gone within the first 10 minutes. It's like, what?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I mean,
it's
for me,
terrible.
As I guess I would have been then, a 13-year-old boy, knowing that I would never see those characters again actually really upset me.
Well, James Marsden, I
really
have a soft spot for James Marsden. He's a very good-looking man. I was very upset. But it's just gone. You don't actually see him die either. You don't see anything of it. He's just gone.
No. Yeah.
If I was him, I'd have been pretty pissed off, to be honest. If this is the script you're handing me, I'm supposed to have been a main character, and you're like,
he deserved better.
No thought went into that whatsoever. They just, it's like they didn't care. He's just, he's in the way, we don't need him, so it's just,
Generally, overall, I think the difference for me in this one is that all of a sudden there's a lot more CGI. There's more artificial looking than the other two. It lost the darkness of the first two, and it lost the reality of the first two. Although I will say the opening scene, slightly different to the other ones where they go back 20 years and they had that de-aging technology on Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen. I don't think that had really been done. That might have even been the first time they properly de-aged actors. But yeah, a lot of the effects, whilst what they were depicting was quite spectacular, I think if you sort of look closely. There's just a sense in the back of it, like the uncanny valley kind of part of your brain saying, I don't believe it.
It's not got quite as perfect a finish.
Yeah, and I think it's because they were just trying to do so much.
Yeah, that can be a real problem for films, I think. Sometimes you just need to do less.
Yeah.
You just need to bring it down a notch and do less in it.
It's the curse of being the third film in the trilogy. We said it with The Dark Knight as well. There's that expectation to go out with a bang.
Yeah.
So, although you say that last section in the film kind of falls flat, shall I tell you what, I love the last scene. That implication that the cure wasn't permanent.
Yeah.
And Magneto moves the piece and they go, and
you're like, yes! That's a great ending. It really is.
It gives me goosebumps.
That worked really well. It was a great way to end it.
X-Men 3 was one of the first films I can think of that standardised having a post-credit scene. In a superhero film.
Yeah.
Because you barely get a superhero film without it now.
Yeah, that's true. It became like a staple, didn't it?
You kind of you always sit and wait for it, don't you?
That leads us on to a nice fun little bit now. Top 5 characters from the first trilogy. So, Matt, what's your number 5 slot?
A lot of people could have gone in this slot.
Okay.
And I feel like maybe there was more deserving people to go in this one. But, however, I do genuinely like Cyclops, and I always have. The films did him dirty, big style. James Marsden deserved loads better, and I think he did have a lot more to give, and his character had a lot more to do. But there are moments, I think, where he really does shine, even if it's just for a couple of seconds. He is a leader. This is the one I've put in because it's one of my favourites, and I thought I couldn't not put him in my list.
Yeah, he's one of my favourites, but I can't include him here because he's just not used properly, and it ruins it, I think, what they did. So my number 5 is Magneto.
Right, okay.
I like that all of the edges are blurred around Magneto. Is he good? Is he bad? Obviously, Ian McKellen's just amazing. That's just a given. And it was always going to be a great part. It's the scenes in it where he's more human, kind of those barriers come down, that I like his character the most, and I think that's really well done. Mystique I really like as well. She just missed out. The actress was underserved, really.
We might talk about her a bit later.
Yeah, so that's my number 5. What's your number 4?
Number 4, Nightcrawler.
Okay, yeah.
Again, I've mostly put him because Cyclops and Nightcrawler were my favourites.
Why wasn't he in the third one? He was such a huge part of the second one. What happened there?
Not sure. I think mostly it's a power thing. If teleportation was an option for me, which it isn't right now, I would pick it over flying, I think. I think it would even trump flying.
Yeah, I'd pick teleportation. I think would be one of my main ones, yeah.
That opening scene of X-Men 2 just solidified, that was iconic, legendary status, that scene. And that's gone on to inspire, the Quicksilver scenes in the next films and things like that. That scene changed my life. I truly believe seeing that in the cinema absolutely put me on a path. And that's why I'm here today. My
number 4 is Iceman. I have a real soft spot for Bobby. I really like Bobby.
Yeah,
he's really just a genuinely nice person. He has a very good heart. and I like his abilities as well. I don't think you really get to see much of them, really. You get to see like little...
You get a glimpse
it's like
at the end of what he can really do.
Yeah, it's like little bits, but I always found it quite cool, and I always liked that he went against Pyro, and Pyro, because I never liked Pyro. I don't like bullies, and I don't like bad people. I always like
he's
good
horrible
characters.
in those films.
Yeah. So I like the fact that he always kind of cools down the situation, he always solves the problem. So yeah, I like Bobby.
Number 3 for me is Mystique.
She's just brilliant.
There's no limits to what she can do. She's a shape-shifting, acrobatic killer hacker. And whenever she turns up in a scene, or when you realise that she's in the scene, you just know that something crazy is about to go down. She'll just destroy everybody in the room. She can get out of handcuffs. She can break people's necks. She'll kick slap the senator in the face, and all sorts of stuff. And she can infiltrate pretty much everywhere. She's smart. She's not show-offy as such. There's only one instance where she sort of flips and she goes out the doors as they close and sticks her middle finger up as they close. You mentioned the actress. Now, Rebecca Romijn was actually, I think she was just a model.
Yeah, she looks like a model, I have to say.
I think she was probably not necessarily underserved, but I think she wasn't given so much to say as much to actually do physically with her body. Because I have the feeling she's not a proper actress. Sorry if you're listening, Rebecca. But yeah, I think it was more physicality and the allure and the ambiguity she brought. Mystique almost becomes not just a code name, but it becomes that's her identity, isn't it? She's a mystery, and how does she do it? Absolutely brilliant.
Oh yeah, brilliant character.
And the effects that they put onto her, and the makeup she obviously went through at the time. Jennifer Lawrence ended up having a costume instead, but she was fully naked with the makeup and things like that. I think she just stands out as that character.
My number 3 is Storm. I like the fact that she's comfortable in herself as a character.
Yeah.
I like that she doesn't think of herself as having a problem. She's very confident of her powers, and her powers are just super cool as well. I love that her eyes go white, and she's because but I think also really I don't think you see the effects of what she could really do.
Apart from just some electric blasts, I never saw rain.
Yeah, if you think of what she is in control of nature.
She did do the tornadoes, I suppose, at one point, but I feel like that even could have been a bit more targeted.
She really is really powerful. I really like her, and the fact that obviously she's a teacher as well.
Yeah. I think you get the sense with Storm that she's been an underdog maybe for a lot of her life.
Yeah.
But she gets more of an arc in that not only does she get more responsibility as she goes on, but in the end, Xavier's talking to her as if to say, I was hoping you might take my place, actually.
Yeah, I really like Halle Berry plays it really well as well. Go on then, what's your next one?
Reluctant second one, Wolverine.
Okay.
Wolverine. I say I'm reluctant to do this because, like I said, I do hold a lot of resentment over the character. It's nothing to do with Hugh Jackman. It's nothing to do with any of that. It's purely because the films all became about him. Every film became about him. 3 more spin-offs became about him. He even somehow turned up in First Class. Days of Future Past became about him. And he dominates these 3 films as well. Like, it's a lot of films to spend with Wolverine. But, however, Hugh Jackman, I think, is great. This role made him a film star.
It literally is his part, isn't it? You can't imagine anybody else. And in that role, he really did take it on.
And the fact he'd never done film acting before as well. I think he grew into the role. I mean, not to say that he wasn't great in the first one, but even physically, the way he transformed. I think the action scenes are fantastic. I think the stunts are fantastic. I like the way that the whole Weapon X, his history has been handled. It's not going into it in too much depth, but it's enough to fuel his character.
Oh, it just, it kept you going. It was interesting. But you still don't know anything about him, really. You just know that this happened to him. And that's part of his kind of mystique, so to speak.
Yeah. It's important that we have characters that don't know who they are, because that's kind of the point, I suppose. And I just wish it hadn't been at the expense of other characters.
Yeah.
But never mind.
Well, mine is the same.
Oh, okay.
My second is also Wolverine. I had him at 1, but I had to move him down a bit.
Okay.
I don't like the character necessarily all the time. Like we were saying, like them coming out and stealing other people's girls and stuff like that. Nah, I'm not on board with that.
Nah.
I don't like that. So he's in the number 2 spot for me.
Okay. I think I know what your number 1's going to be then. My number 1, I think so. I don't know now. Okay. My number 1, I have gone for Magneto.
I'm not surprised by this.
I think the performance is solid. I think he absolutely nailed every look, every belief, every struggle, every plight, everything. I think he absolutely understood the character that he brought more to. I think he really brought a gravity to the role. And like I said, I believe from watching Ian McKellen that he has experienced what Magneto had gone through. I believe what he said when he made those speeches or when he appeared on the news.
Words.
So he knows how to create and sustain a character, and I think from beginning to end of those 3 films, he doesn't falter at all.
No.
I think he's a perfect character, and I think he was the perfect choice. I don't think anyone else could have done what he did.
This really makes me laugh. It does make me laugh because it just shows us at oppositions again. Like we're always on the completely opposite side. Yeah, my first is Professor X. Okay. I have a thing about really wise, older kind of mentor characters. I always just really like them, and Patrick Stewart he does that so well. But I like the stillness of him, the slowness of his words, and that everything he says has a meaning behind it. It's very powerful, and that everybody looks up to him, and he's the person. Like you see when he's gone, you see like Storm and Logan, and they're like, well, what do we do? Because he is the staple. He's that person who you gravitate towards because he'll fix things.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah, you get that sense that once he'd gone, the world would be a very different place for them.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of where you leave the film, isn't it? You're like, oh, I'm not sure where, there's a new horizon, there's a new dawn, and we're not sure what things are going to look like now, but we just got to take the best and go with it.
Yeah, he fits very much the Dumbledore, Gandalf kind of role that you get in that type of film, and their characters that I just love. I do love them. There's a few I would have maybe done, but it's the way that they were used. Cyclops would definitely be in there if they'd have done a better job with him. Because I do really like Cyclops. He was the leader, apart from Professor X. He was when you went out into battle. He was supposed to be your main guy, and nah. Okay, well, that's it. So we don't have any news this week because there really isn't much of any.
Have you got a film to recommend this week?
I do, and now we were going to say here we've not had an awful lot of chance to watch a lot in the last few weeks, but both of us have been very busy. But I happened, and this was not meant to be watched at all, but my husband was watching Shaun of the Dead in bed last week, and I happened to come in like literally about 2 minutes after it had started, and I just stayed. I wasn't intending to, but it's just I couldn't leave. I just ended up sitting and watching the entire thing. It's very well put together. It is a very, very good script. Just for example, the first scene where you see him walk to the shop, and it's a normal day, and you see like certain people that he passes, and his route, and pay no attention to anything. And then about 10 minutes later, you see the same route and all the things that have changed. And obviously, as an audience member, you're going, "Oh my god!" You notice all these things, and he's just oblivious to all of it. It's really, really clever. I really do think it's a great film. It's very well written.
A new brand of British comedy, wasn't it? That they with Hot Fuzz as well.
Yeah, I like Hot Fuzz as well.
They're both very good films.
Yeah.
I did the same really. I picked a film because it's the only other one I've watched. I kind of hated it.
Oh wow! Okay.
Well, I didn't hate it. I'll explain. So I watched that film. I told you I watched, and I know how to pronounce it now. The Synecdoche, New York film by Charlie Kaufman, who did being John Malkovich and Eternal Sunshine.
Yes.
And it had Philip Seymour Hoffman in, so I was like, surely this is going to be good. And it is brilliant. I have no idea what it was about. I've never been defeated as much.
It's extremely difficult to fathom.
Yeah,
it's
I had to have a
really
sleep
hard work.
halfway through. I had to go to. I just had an hour with my eyes closed because I couldn't cope with what it was. It's so strange, honestly, but it's so well done. Everything sort of feels off from the very beginning. I'd never looked into. I didn't know what the film was about. I had absolutely no idea what the plot was. So I literally just turned it on, and just from the second that characters start talking, you're just like, something's just not right. And everything they say is either worded like it shouldn't be, or they slightly overlap.
I don't quite remember a lot. I just remember being really confused
really
and
bizarre.
not really liking it because I just didn't get it. It was so weird.
There's things like characters overlap, like they answer the question before the question's been finished, and that happens all the way through. But no one bats an eyelid, and it makes you think, is it me that's not? Locations operate bizarrely. Sets don't work by the normal rules of physics, and odd things happen, and the main character's continually dying, but he never dies, and his wife paints these impossibly tiny pictures that you can only see in an art gallery if you've got magnifying glass, and the whole thing that he's a theatre director and he's won this grant and he's going to produce this new great big art installation, this theatre piece. But it turns into this sort of like Russian doll of because he creates New York within a warehouse, and in that warehouse is the warehouse, and it just keeps going. And it's very Charlie Kaufman levels.
It's mad.
Levels of the mind.
Very hard to understand as a film.
Yeah. And by the end of it, you're like, who's in control? Who's directing who? Are we all just performers? What does it all mean? And Samantha Morton and Michelle Williams are in this as well. They're also very good. So if you want to have a challenge.
What was the word you used last week?
Oh, mindfuck.
Yes, it's very much one of those.
Yeah, it's more so than maybe anything I've ever seen. So that's why I kind of hate it, because I was like, I'm good at working things out.
I know you like to
this.
work things out, yeah.
I just couldn't.
I can see how it would bother you, that one.
But it was very, very well made. Very well acted.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever
absolutely.
it was they were trying to do. And that's
it.
The end of X-Men.
It is. So, Matt, where can they find us?
Well, you can find us at cinechat.co.uk/podcast, or on any social media. Just search CineChat Podcast, or you can email us at
podcast@cinechat.co.uk.
Indeed. Next, we're going a bit light entertainment.
We certainly are.
It's going to be the 60th birthdays of both Colin Firth and Hugh Grant, the princes of British romantic comedies. They're born one day apart. And we're going to look at Four Weddings and a Funeral, Bridget Jones, Love Actually, and then The King's Speech, because we can.
Yes, because you can and you have to, don't you?
That's right.
You have to.
Yeah. Well, that's next time. Join us then. Let us know how you did on the quiz. Did you beat me?
Better than me, I hope.
Yeah, did you beat Mary? That's I'm
the measure stick by which to go. If you beat me, well done.
To be fair, though, what was the week where I only got? What was Back to the Future? I only got 5 out of 15. That should be the that should be the measurement. So, I mean, 7.5's okay when it's out of 12.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I was expecting less, so I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all right then.
So it's bye for me.
And bye from me.